So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to talk about the project tab or the project page on Source. And this is the heart of the Source platform because this is where Source template questions come in. And this is where you will find the best international practices and methodologies embedded into the source. So essentially, you can say that the project page is the knowledge management tool of the source platform. So to access the source project uh, template questions, you go onto the project page, and on this page you will see the different stages of a PPP project, or rather different stages of any infrastructure project, um, as per the APMG best practices. So, users who have given papers or acquired certifications in the APMG PPP certification, they would know that PPP or an infrastructure project is basically divided into 8 phases, starting from project definition, where the project is defined and conceived. Then it's the project appraisal phase. So basically, one step back, the project definition phase is where the project is conceived and the investment decision is taken. So, as per the APMG best practices or the APMG taxonomy, the investment decision refers to a decision taken by the competent authority to move forward with the preparation of the project. So, the project definition stage is where the investment decision takes place. Once the investment decision takes place, then the project appraisal stage comes in, where the project feasibility is developed and it is appraised, and the project is structured, and the tender documentation, the RFP, the draft concession agreements, and the project agreements are drafted, and the feasibility and the structuring is taken to the competent authority for approval. That approval is called the procurement decision, and based on the procurement decision, the tender process takes place, where, in compliance with the jurisdiction's procurement policies and laws, the tender process takes place and the bid submissions are done, the bids are evaluated, negotiations are done, and then the award is made. After that, the project gets into the implementation phase, where you do the pre-commencement activities, get the conditions precedents effective, and the gather the equity financing, and do the commercial and financial close, and then you get into the construction. And from construction, once the construction is complete, then you get into the operations and maintenance phase, where the asset is then operated and maintained for whatever the contract period is. So these are the 8 stages of a PPP project cycle, and on a macro level, and for the Pakistan environment, we have classified these stages into 5 main project statuses, which is inception, preparation, execution, implementation, which is construction, and implementation, which is O&M, operations and maintenance, and periodical reporting. So based on these project phases, you can see that over here you see these 6 themes: governance, technical, economic, legal, financial, environmental, and social. So a little while earlier, when I was talking that this is referring to the this page as being the heart of the source platform, so this is what I meant, that the source template questions based on the sector and the subsector selected for that particular project. The source template questions come up based on what stage the project is in, and they are divided into the following themes: governance, technical, economic, legal, financial, environmental, and social. And as you move along, the source template questions are then more focused on that particular phase or that particular stage where the project is in. So, for example, when you're defining the project and conceiving the project, if you press the governance tab, you'll see a lot of questions that have come up which are related to governance aspects. So it says that does the project fit within any strategic plans? So you answer yes or no. If it's a yes, you give some narrative assessment of your answer. Some questions are multiple choice questions. So you can, for example, this question where it says which of the following objectives would best justify the spending of public funds for the proposed project. So you can choose multiple answers. Then there are some open-ended questions where you can give in your response in writing. Some questions are more detailed in the sense that you have multiple uh, yes answers depending on what the question is asking. So, for example, is there foreseeable market appetite for the proposed project? Here you can see that there are multiple yes answers, but they are different in the sense that there is an option yes from investors, yes from construction contractors, yes from O&M operators, yes from lenders, etc. So this is how you fill in these questions, and based on the answers to these questions, you see on the project dashboard, you see these project statuses along with these. I'll show you. Yeah, so you see these circles which show the progress status. So, for example, in the project definition phase, 64% of the questions have been answered. Similarly, in the project appraisal phase, 10% of the questions have been answered. So, when a project is being assessed by the implementing agency's competent authority or whether by P3A, so this is a way to see whether the project has been robustly prepared in the sense that all questions or most questions have been answered and what the answers are, and each answer can then be um, basically reviewed and validated. So I'll give you an example. When you're filling in an answer, for example, let's take the economic section. So there is this question that I haven't answered. Let's say it's regarding funding, and it says, is it envisaged to generate revenues from user charges to fund the project? Let's say that the answer is no. So let's select no. Once you select no, you will see here that uh, a tick mark and a cross comes over here. So this is for the a person who is validating these answers, maybe the supervisor of the project team member, the project manager, or anybody who has been given the management and editing rights when the team was being formed for the project. So if the scorer or the supervisor is looking at this answer and he agrees with that answer, he can say validate, and the question is then validated, and it is automatically in real time, it is reflected in the progress circle that I showed you a couple of minutes ago. So let this first save, and then I'll go back to the main page to show you that the percentage would have now increased. In fact, let's do another question so that you can see a more pronounced change in the percentage completion. So bear with me for a couple of seconds while this answer is stored in the system. Okay, so while this is in progress, let me basically try to answer another question, but this won't be possible right now till such time that this progress bar disappears. So here you can see that the answer reviewed successfully, and now it has been validated with a green tick mark. Now, the other question, economic analysis, it pertains to economic analysis, and the question is, has an economic analysis of the project been conducted at this stage? So, you have to keep in mind that you are in the project definition stage where the project has been has gone through a pre-feasibility or some conceptual development, and maybe some subjective sort of an economic analysis has been done, or maybe you haven't done an economic analysis, and maybe you would want to do that during the project appraisal phase where the project feasibility will be developed. So let's see what the answers are here, and it says yes or no. So let's say you select yes, and the so basically based on on this answer, a couple of more questions open up based on the economic analysis, and it says what kind of economic analysis has been conducted. So you would say that a multi-criteria analysis has been conducted, and it says, does the economic analysis demonstrate that the direct benefits of the project are greater than its costs? So you show here that yes, and this is one of the reasons why the project is basically based on a positive economic angle of the project pre-feasibility. This is one of the factors that leads to the competent authority taking an investment decision in that project, right? So this is why I say that this page is the heart of the source platform. And this is where, if this is completed in a robust manner, all questions are completed, um, then you would see that the project quality is very much increased, and this is then reflected in the various assessment methodologies that I showed you in the previous video regarding the assessment module of the project page. So here you see that this has been these has been answered. Now let's go to the home page and the dashboard on the home page, and here you will see that the percentage for the project definition stage would now have increased. I think last time it was about 64% or something like that. Now you see that the percentage has increased to 67%. So this is how the the source template questions work. Similarly, this was the project definition phase. Now, when you move ahead in the project development cycle, let's say you go into the project appraisal phase now, and you've hired the transaction advisors, and they are sort of working on the feasibility studies. So now here you see that the questions again are regarding. Now you see here that there is another aspect or theme that has been added, which is costs. In the project definition stage, because costs were not really identified, they were more of a subjective thing. That is why the cost parameter was not here in the inception phase. But now in the project appraisal phase, because the costs have been sort of identified, and there is a good estimate of the project costs, the cost section is there. Then you've got the legal, environmental, social, economic, governance aspects. Then when you go to the project structuring section, or when you go into the project structuring phase, where you're sort of structuring the project in terms of risk allocations and other factors, the questions are now more toned towards the project structuring aspect of the project. So here you see that the governance questions are now more towards the structuring, and the questions are, what is the preferred procurement option, will users be charged, right? Have resources been allocated in the project structuring to deliver the environmental, social, and gender equity activities identified in the project appraisal? There are a lot, many questions. So in this, for example, in this section, based on this particular sector and subsector that we've chosen here, you can see that there are 132 questions that should be answered ideally. And this just gives you an idea that these source template questions indirectly improve the capacity of the transaction advisors as well as the project developing implementing agency, that it sort of forces them to consider these questions for the project preparation. So this is a very this is the heart of the source platform in my view. And as you move forward, let's say you're getting into the tender preparation phase, here you will see that the questions will be now more regarding the tender documentation and other things. So it says who is the you add, it's asking you for details. So it's asking you about the procurement team. You add members of the procurement team. In the federal case, there is a tender committee that is supposed to be notified when a procurement is being initiated. So you can add the team members here, and over here you can select or input the bid submission method that you will be choosing for this procurement, the inquiry period end date, the duration, maximum extension date. It's asking about the qualification criteria. So you upload the final RFQ document, upload the draft contract, and the main things that make up the contract. For example, the contract period, the governing law, the dispute resolution mechanism. So for example, in the draft contract regarding the dispute resolution mechanism, if you press this, is going to give you options about what dispute resolution mechanism have you incorporated into the contract. So is it a local arbitration? Have you decided for international arbitration, or maybe a dispute resolution board or other? Let's say it's other. You select that and save that, and similarly what the participation fees are and stuff like that. So similarly, as you move ahead, based on where the project is standing, the questions are then tailored for that particular aspect or phase of the project. I think the last thing that I should show you on the project page is, for example, let's go back to the project definition phase. And over here, because we've answered a few questions, so I will show you some more aspects. So for example, let's go in the technical section. Here we have um, answered a couple of questions. So for example, this question, is the project scalable and or replicable? So I answered yes, and gave my reason for this. Now regarding this question, if a team member or a new team member has been added to this particular project, and just for his understanding, he's sort of catching up on where the project stands right now, and he's looking at these answers and he wants to see where these answers are coming from. He can go into these, he can either press this question itself, where you see that the mouse turns into a hand sign, or he can press these three dots at the right hand side of the question. And if you press this, it says history. It gives you the option of history, add a document, and add a lesson learned. So history shows you the history of this question in terms of the answers. So who answered the question, what were the details, what date did he do that on, and what date was the answer validated. Similarly, so this gives you an idea about if the question has been reviewed and what the history was regarding this question. So this is also this also reflects the institutional memory capturing of the source platform. Similarly, the other option is add a document. So maybe for this particular for this particular answer, you have a document to sort of back up your answer. So you can add a document regarding this question, and you select a file, put a file title, and select OK, and the document is added to this particular question. And also in the documents folder of this particular stage. So I'll show you that later in a later video. But keep in mind that any documents that you add, they automatically go into the documents tab as well. You can see them from the documents tab, and we'll explore the documents tab later. So the third question, or the third option that you have here, is to add a lesson learned. So you can add a lesson learned regarding this question. So let's say that in your previous experience regarding a similar project, you had this, you learned a lesson that even if the project is scalable, there are several other factors that may affect the scalability. So that lesson you can put in here, and you can regarding scalability, and you can save this. So this is a lesson learned that is useful for all people who are using the platform or who are part of the project team. So it adds to their um, capacity building and aptitude. So for example, one lesson learned has already been added here. So let's see what that was. And this is just a dummy entry where a lesson learned is showed in the inception phase. So this was about the project page of the particular PPP project that you are working on. And in the next video, I'll talk about the process page, and then finally we'll talk about the documents page, and this would then lead to the conclusion of our YouTube video series for the federal PPP framework in Pakistan. Thank you for staying with me, and I'll see you in the next video.